Hello, this is Brian. Today is Monday, April 4th, 2022. I am in the Los Padres National Forest at Apache Saddle Forest Service Station along Mil Potrero Highway at the base of Mount Pinos to our south and the south flank of the San Emigdio Mountains here to our north. And I want to provide a spotlight of shrubs. Spotlight on shrubs today will focus on the Parry Manzanita, and this is Arctostaphylos parryana subspecies parryana. And we have some very lush and very well developed specimens here. So Arctostaphylos parryana is divided up into three subspecies: Arctostaphylos parryana subspecies parryana, Arctostaphylos parryana subspecies tumescens, and subspecies desertica. Here where we are, again, this is Arctostaphylos parryana subspecies parryana, the regular Parry Manzanita. So it's at the least a minimum, at the minimum, a medium-sized shrub, sometimes quite large. Generally supposed to have more of a mounding shape, according to Michael Kaufman's Manzanita's book, Michael Kaufman et al. But some of these get quite erect here. Some of these get quite large, actually. Some of these are very old specimens that have probably resprouted a long time ago, or maybe haven't burnt in a very long time. So Parry Manzanita is known for having relatively bright green leaves, quite variable in shape, honestly. Some of them are very oval and rounded, rounded at the base, rounded at the tip, with a little tiny point. Most of the time there's going to be a small little point, but some of them do have rounded leaves without a noticeable point. As you can see here, for the most part, most of the leaves are going to have a point, and the leaves are relatively small to medium size for your typical manzanitas. And here we are, just a little bit above 6,000 feet, and looking at some great specimens of this awesome shrub. So this subspecies of Parry Manzanita is the most widely found form, found here mostly in the Transverse Ranges here of Southern California, from southern Kern County and Santa Barbara County eastward to the San Bernardino Mountains. The other subspecies are found in some of the other areas of the Transverse Ranges, like the San Bernardinos, the other subspecies, and then also in some of the northern peninsular mountain ranges. But this one is a Transverse Range subspecies right here. Parryana subspecies parryana. Also features this very rich brownish, reddish brown bark, very smooth, with exception during the summertime. As the plant expands in girth, the bark will peel off in these little curly little peeling strips, little tiny curly little peeling strips towards the late spring and to midsummer months, and then you'll notice that that's when they do their annual bark peel. And that's common with manzanitas. Where this one is growing is in mostly a pinyon woodland, but also mixed with Jeffrey pine, Tucker oak, sagebrush, and some other shrubs. So you can find it often mixed in woodlands and conifer forests, and also in chaparral. It tends to prefer south-facing exposures, as most manzanitas do. Especially mid-elevation manzanitas tend to prefer more sun exposure. And like basically all the manzanitas, the leaves are quite vertically oriented, as you can see here. And what that does is it helps them minimize the amount of water loss, especially with the sun high in the sky. So Parry Manzanita runs from being glabrous, in other words hairless, to very sparsely barely noticeably fuzzy and non-glandular hairy. Unlike Eastwood Manzanita, a sometimes confused relative, and that's Arctostaphylos glandulosa, with a bunch of different subspecies I'm not going to go into, that run the range from being noticeably fuzzy to very glandularly hairy. But if you look carefully at the twig, it's going to be hard to discern on camera, but you notice there's a light, kind of a light grayish hue in that reddish twig, and that's the very, very, very tiny, minuscule hairs. And the leaves themselves also run from being hairless to very, very lightly fuzzy. And sometimes you can even rub the leaf and not even feel it. And then you look at it with the sun's angle pointing at it, you can kind of see just a little cover of fuzz on it. And that's pretty common here. So the leaves are quite variable again. We got some here that are very ovate with a pointy tip. Some of these leaves are quite small and narrow. And then some of them are a little broader. And occasionally, not even pointy tipped. For the most part, you're going to have a relatively rounded leaf bottom here, but sometimes it's a little narrower. So, to me, the variability of the leaf shape of these manzanitas make it very hard for me personally, and for even more experienced and more trained botanists than me, to tell species of manzanita apart. Because manzanitas can be very similar, and I've had a huge amount of difficulty telling manzanitas apart. So I've seen manzanitas very similar to this in Ventura County. That might have been this one as well, but it was hard to tell whether those were Cushing's manzanitas, Arctostaphylos glandulosa subspecies Cushingiana, or Parry Manzanita. But where we are here, Eastwood Manzanita is not known to grow. No subspecies, not even Cushingiana, not subspecies glandulosa, none of those subspecies known to grow here in this area. So this helps me narrow this down between Arctostaphylos patula, Arctostaphylos parryana, Arctostaphylos nevadensis, Arctostaphylos viscida. And Arctostaphylos viscida I have not seen over here, and the leaves are much more glaucous colored. In other words, they have more of a bluish gray hue to them. And this is not it, most certainly not it. And that tends to be a much more erect shrub. It could start out very bushy and low and mounding like this, but Arctostaphylos viscida, which is white leaf manzanita, tends to be much taller growing. And I can definitely, with the color of these leaves, the lighter green color, I can rule that out. Arctostaphylos patula would be a really close, very close look-alike to Parry Manzanita. However, if you are in an area where they both intergrade, and that might be possible in some of these transverse mountain ranges, Arctostaphylos patula tends to be more low-growing, very rarely taller than you. And if you look at the hairiness of the twigs on Arctostaphylos patula, which is not here, Arctostaphylos patula tends to have a little bit of a golden fuzziness from its hairs. These do not have the golden fuzziness. They have a little grayish white fuzziness. So green leaf manzanita, Arctostaphylos patula, has fine golden hairs on the twigs. That'll help you distinguish it from Arctostaphylos parryana. I'm hoping that this video is being helpful in trying to tell some of the difference here between these species of manzanita, and I still have a very hard time with other species. Very hard time. So I'm hoping that these little detailed descriptions are helpful in if you're interested in trying to separate different species of manzanita. Because for me, I get more of appreciation by learning the differences between the species and being able to tell them apart. I love manzanitas as it is, but I like to, as a very inquisitive person, I like to be able to tell the species apart for my own interest. So this one right here tends to have more noticeably pointy tipped leaves and more noticeable fuzziness on the blades of the leaves. So again, variability is part of what makes Manzanita species separation so hard. So now we're going to look at the beautiful flowers of these. So we got these beautiful white pinkish flowers that are about the shape of a bell, and this is characteristic of the Madrone subfamily, the Arbutoideae, of the Heath family. Very small, narrow flowers with a very small corolla opening, you can see in the center there, that makes it hard for certain pollinators or nectar robbers to come in and take the nectar. So what often happens is you're going to notice a lot of these flowers will have little holes on the side of them. So you can see this one right here has, you can see a little dot in there. That is often what happens when an insect who takes the nectar can't get inside the very, very narrow corolla tube. Simply, the insect will just bite the outside of the flower and take the nectar that way. Sometimes, maybe it'll help pollinate the flower. Other times, I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of instances when that happens, that the nectar is just taken without pollination occurring. But you got it. Parry Manzanita, Arctostaphylos parryana, subspecies parryana, right from beautiful Kern County, Southern California. Enjoying these beautiful shrubs and looking at the crazy variability. So I'm going to look at one more specimen before I go ahead and shut down the video. This one even has a brighter green color. So you notice, medium green, brighter green. And again, this is not Arctostaphylos patula because there are no golden hairs on the twigs. And it's another similar species might be found here, Arctostaphylos glauca, here in Kern County, but they're much more upright and much more upright than these. But as you can tell, this one's got a brighter green. The leaves are broader, larger. Some of them are pointy tipped, some of them aren't. And you still get the same little grayish white fuzz. And the leaves tend to be a little shinier, and it's a little harder to notice the hairs on those. So there you have it. Another reason why manzanitas can be very frustrating for especially amateur and only moderately experienced botanists. There you have it. The beautiful, awesome Parry Manzanita, Arctostaphylos parryana, subspecies parryana, right here from beautiful Kern County, right along Mil Potrero Highway at Apache Saddle. This was a spotlight video. I hope this helped you find some ways to try to tell some of these manzanitas apart, because I know they frustrate me, and I've had a lot of difficulty, and I still do. One good book to get is a Field Guide to Manzanitas by Michael Kaufman et al. There are a couple of other authors. It's a small paperback book, and that might give you some clues as to how to tell these apart. But even with that, being experienced will make it a little bit easier. But thanks for watching my spotlight on shrubs. I hope you found this helpful, informative, and interesting. And I will see you on my next spotlight video.